Okay, everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us for the Malden Public Library's first Friday Folk and Fairy Tales for Adults. This is a series that will be ongoing for the summer and we hope will continue into the fall and beyond, though it may not have the folk and fairy tale theme. We do want to just warn that this series features stories with material and themes that may not be appropriate or prove challenging for younger listeners. It is intended for adult audiences, so parental discretion is advised. We're not saying children can't listen, but use your discretion. The pandemic has presented us with new challenges and exacerbated old ones. Folk and fairy tales do not merely entertain us, but teach and remind us that we can conquer whatever we face and help quell our fears and anxieties. As we are faced with new obstacles, we also need new fairy tales. On these summer Fridays, we will be sharing a combination of old and new folk and fairy tales to aid our community in overcoming the challenges we face today. To quote Neil Gaiman, who is apparently paraphrasing G.K. Chesterton, fairy tales are more than true, not because they tell us that dragons exist, but because they tell us that dragons can be beaten. Today's story comes from the short story collection Vampires in the Lemon Grove by Karen Russell. The story is titled Reeling for the Empire. Several of us claim to have been the daughters of samurai, but of course, there is no way for anyone to verify that now. It's a relief in its way, the new anonymity. We come here tall and thin, noble women from Yamaguchi, graceful as calligraphy, short and poor, Hida girls with bloody feet, pro-voiced and vulgar, entrusted to the model mill by our teary mothers, rented out by our destitute uncles. But within a day or two, the drink the recruitment agent gives us begins to take effect. And the more our Kiko bodies begin to resemble one another, the more frantically each factory girl works to reinvent her past. One of the consequences of our captivity here in the nowhere mill, and of the darkness that pools on the factory floor, and of the poor fur that covers our faces, blanking us all into sisters, is that anybody can be anyone she likes in the past. Some of our lies are quite bold. Yuna says that her great uncle has a scrap of sailcloth from the Black Ships. Dai claims that she knelt alongside her samurai father at the Battle of Shirayama. Nishi fibs that she once stowed away in the imperial caboose of Shimbashi station to Yokohama and saw Emperor Meiji eating pink cake. Back in Gifu, I had tangly hair like a donkey's tail, a mouth like a small red bean, but I tell the others that I was very beautiful. Where are you from? They ask me. The castle in Gifu, perhaps you know it from the famous woodblocks? My great-grandfather was a warrior. Oh, but Kitsune, we thought you said your father was the one who printed the woodblocks. The famous ukiyo-e artist Utagawa Kuriyoshi? Yes, he was, yesterday. I'll put it bluntly, we are all becoming reelers. Some kind of hybrid creature, part Kiko, silkworm caterpillar, and part human female. Some of the older workers' faces are already quite covered with a coarse white fur, but my face and thighs stayed smooth for 20 days. In fact, I've only just begun to grow the white hair on my belly. During my first nights and days in the silk reeling factory, I was always shaking. I had never been a hysterical person, and so at first, I misread these tremors as mere mood. I was in the clutches of a giddy sort of terror, I thought. Then, the roiling feeling became solid. It was the thread, a color purling invisibly in my belly. Silk, yards and yards of thin color would soon be extracted from me by the machine. Today, the agent drops off 2 new recruits, sisters from the Yamagata Prefecture, a blue village called Sakegawa, which none of us have visited. They are the daughters of a salmon fisherman, and their names are Tuka and Etsuyo. They are 12 and 19. Tuka has a waist-length braid and baby fat. Etsuyo looks like a forest doe with her long neck and watchful brown eyes. We step into the light, and Etsuyo swallows her scream. Tuka starts wailing. Who are you? What's happened to you? What is this place? Dai crosses the room to them, and despite their terror, the Sakegawa sisters are too sleepy and too shocked to recoil from her embrace. They appear to have drunk the tea very recently, because they're quaking on their feet. Etsuyo's eyes cross as if she is about to faint. Dai unrolls 2 tatami mats in the dark corner, helps them to stretch out. Sleep a little, she whispers. Dream. Is this the silk reeling factory? Slurs Tuka, half conscious on her bedroll. Oh yes, Dai says. Her furry face hovers like a moon above them. Tuka nods, satisfied, as if willing to dismiss all of her terror to continue believing in the agent's promises, and shuts her eyes. Sometimes when new recruits confide the hopes that brought them to our factory, I have to suppress a bitter laugh. Long before the Kiko change turned us into mirror images of one another, we were sisters already, spinning identical dreams in beds thousands of miles apart, fantasizing about gold silks and an imperial vocation. We envisioned our future dowries, our family's miraculous freedom from debt. We thrilled to the same tales of women working in the grand textile mills, where steel machines from Europe gleamed in the light of the Meiji sunrise. Our world had changed so rapidly in the wake of the black ships that the poets could barely keep pace with the scenes outside their own windows. Industry, trade, unstoppable growth. Years before the agent came to find us, our dreams anticipated his promises. Since my arrival here, my own fantasies have grown as dark as the room. In them, I snip a new girl's thread mid-air or yank all the silk out of her at once so that she falls lifelessly forward like a bunraku puppet. I haven't been able to cry since my first night here, but often I feel a water pushing at my skull. Can the thread migrate to your brain? I've asked Di nervously. Silk starts as a liquid. Right now, I can feel it traveling below my navel, my thread, foaming icily along the lining of my stomach. Under the blankets, I watch it rise in a hard lump. There are 20 workers sleeping on 12 tatami mats, 2 rows of us, our heads 10 centimeters apart, our earlobes curled like snails on adjacent leaves, and though we are always hungry, every one of us has a round belly. Most nights I can barely sleep, moaning for dawn and the machine. Every aspect of our new lives, from working to sleeping, eating and shitting, bathing when we can get wastewater from the machine, is conducted in one brick room. The far wall has a single oval window set high in its center, too high for us to see much besides scraps of cloud and a woodpecker that is like a celebrity to us, provoking gasps and applause every time he appears. Kiko Joko, we call ourselves, silkworm workers. Unlike regular Joko, we have no foremen or men. We are all alone in this box of a room. Dai says that she's the dormitory supervisor, but that's Dai's game. We were all brought here by the same man, the factory recruitment agent, a representative endorsed by Emperor Meiji himself from the new Ministry for the Promotion of Industry. We were all told slightly different versions of the same story. Our fathers or guardians signed contracts that varied only slightly in their terms, most promising a 5 yen advance for 1 year of our lives. The recruitment agent travels the countryside to recruit female workers willing to travel far from their home prefectures to a new European-style silk reeling mill. Presumably, he is out recruiting now. He makes his pitch not to the woman herself, but to her father or guardian, or in some few cases, where single women cannot be procured, her husband. I am here on behalf of the nation, he begins, in the spirit of Shokusan Kogyo, increase production, encourage industry. We are recruiting only the most skillful and loyal mill workers, he continues. Not just peasant girls like your offspring, he might say with his silver tongue to men in the Gifu and Mi prefectures, but the well-bred daughters of noblemen, samurai and aristocrats. City-born governors have begged me to train their daughters on Western technologies. Last week, the medical general of the Imperial Army sent his 19-year-old twins by train. Sometimes there's resistance from the father or guardian, especially among the Hicks, those stony-faced men from distant centuries who still make bean paste, wade into rice paddies, brew sake using 1,000-year-old methods. But the agent waves away all qualms. Ah, you've heard about X mill or Y factory? No, the French Yatoi engineers don't drink girls' blood. That is what they call red wine. Yes, there was a fire at Aichi factory, a little trouble with tuberculosis in Suwa, but our factory is quite different. It is a national secret. Yes, a place that makes even the French villager in the backwoods of Gunma with its brick walls and steam engines look antiquated. This phantom factory he presents to her father or guardian with great cheerfulness and urgency, for he says we have awoken to dawn, the enlightened era of the Meiji, and we must all play our role now. Japan's silk is her world export. The blight in Europe, the Pébrine virus, has killed every silkworm, forever halted the Westerners' cocoon production. The demand is as vast as the ocean. This is the moment to seize. Silk reeling is a sacred vocation. She will be reeling for the empire. The fathers and guardians nearly always sign the contract. Publicly, the Joko's family will share a cup of hot tea with the agent. They celebrate her new career and the 5-yen advance against her legally mortgaged future. Privately, an hour or so later, the agent will share a special toast with the girl herself. The agent improvises his tea rooms, an attic in a forest inn, or a locked changing room in a bathhouse, or, in the case of Iku, an abandoned cowshed. After sunset, the old blind woman arrives, the zookeeper we call her. She hauls our food to the grated door, unbars the lower panel. We pass her that day's skeins of reeled silk, and she pushes 2 sacks of mulberry leaves through the panel with a long stick. The woman never speaks to us, no matter what questions we shout at her. She simply waits, patiently, for our skeins, and so long as they are acceptable in quality and weight, she slides in our leaves. Tonight, she has also slid in a tray of steaming human food for the new recruits. Tuka and Etsuyo get cups of rice and miso soup with floating carrots. Hunks of real ginger are unraveling in the broth like hair. We all sit on the opposite side of the room and watch them chew with a dewy nostalgia that disgusts me, even as I find myself ogling their long white fingers on their chopsticks, the balls of rice. The salt and fat smells of their food make my eyes ache. When we eat the mulberry leaves, we lower our new faces to the floor. They drink down the soup in silence. Are we dreaming? I hear one whisper. The tea drugged us, the younger sister Tuka cries at last. Her gaze darts here and there, as if she's hoping to be contradicted. They traveled 9 days by riverboat and ox cart, Etsuyo tells us, wearing blindfolds the entire time. So we could be that far north of Yamagata, or west, or east, the younger sister says. We collect facts from every new Kiko Joko, and we use them to draw thread maps of Japan on the factory floor. But not even Suki the Apt can guess our whereabouts. Nowhere Mill, we call this place. Dai crosses the room and speaks soothingly to the sisters. Then she leads them right to me. Oh, happy day. I glare at her through an unchewed mouthful of leaves. Kitsune is quite a veteran now, says smiling Dai, leading the fishy sisters to me. She will show you around. I hate this part. You have to tell the new ones what's in store for them. Minds have been spoiled by the surprise. Will the manager of this factory be coming soon? Etsuyo asks in a grave voice. I think there has been a mistake. I don't belong here, Tuka breathes. There's nowhere else for you now, I say, staring at the floor. That tea he poured you back in Sakagawa? The agent's drink is remaking your insides, your intestines, your secret organs. Soon, your stomachs will bloat. You will manufacture silk in your gut with the same helpless skill that you digest food, exhale. The Kiko chain, she calls it, a revolutionary process. Not even Chio, who knows sericulture, has ever heard of a tea that turns girls into silkworms. We think the tea may have been created abroad by French chemists or British engineers, Yatoi tea, unless it's the agent's own technology. I try to smile at them now. In the cup, it was so lovely to look at, wasn't it? An orange hue, like something out of the princess's floating world woodblocks. Etsuyo is shaking. But we can't undo it? Surely there's a cure, a way to reverse it before it's too late. Before we look like you, she means. The only cure is a temporary one, and it comes from the machine. When your thread begins, you'll understand. It takes 13 to 14 hours for the machine to empty a Kikojoko of her thread. The relief of being rid of it is indescribable. These seashore girls know next to nothing about silkworm cultivation. In the mountains of Chichibu, Chio tells them, everyone in her village was involved. 70 families worked together in a web, planting and watering the mulberry trees, raising the Kiko eggs to pupa, feeding the silkworm caterpillars. The art of silk production was very, very inefficient, I tell the sisters, slow and costly, until us. I try to weed the pride from my voice, but it's difficult. In spite of everything, I can't help but admire the quantity of silk that we Kiko Joko can produce in a single day. The agent boasts that he has made us the most productive machines in the empire, surpassing even those steel zithers and cast iron belchers at Tomioka Model Mill. Eliminated, mechanical famine. Supply problems caused by the cocoon's tiny size and irregular quality. Eliminated, waste silk. Eliminated, cultivation of the kiko, the harvesting of their eggs, the laborious collection and separation of the silk cocoons. We silkworm girls combine all these processes in a single factory of our bodies. Ceaselessly, even while we dream, we are generating thread. Every droplet of our energy, every moment of our time flows into the silk. I guide the sisters to the first of the 3 workbenches. Here are the basins, I say, steam heated, quite modern, eh? Where we boil the water. I plunge my left hand under the boiling water for as long as I can bear it. Soon, the skin on my fingertips softens and bursts, and fine waggling fibers rise from them. Green thread lifts right out of my veins. With my right hand, I pluck up the thread from my left fingertips and wrist. See? Easy. A single strand is too fine to reel, so you have to draw several out. Wind 6 or 8 around your finger, rub them together to get the right denier. When they are thick enough, you feed them to the machine. Di is drawing red thread onto her reeler, watching me approvingly. Are we monsters now? Tuka wants to know. I give Di a helpless look. That's a question I won't answer. Di considers. In the end, she tells the new reelers about the Juyo, the snow monsters, snow and ice-covered trees in Jiao Onsen, her home. The snow monsters, Dai smiles, brushing her white whiskers, are very beautiful. Their disguises make them beautiful, but they are still trees, you see, under all that frost. While the sisters drink in the snooze, I steer them to the machine. The machine looks like a great steel and wood beast with a dozen rotating eyes and steaming mouths. It's 20 meters long and takes up nearly half the room. The central reeler is a huge and ever-spinning O, capped with rows of flashing metal teeth. Pulleys swing our damp thread left to right across it, refining it into finished silk. Tuka shivers and says it looks as if the machine is smiling at us. Hiko Joko sit at the workbenches that face the giant wheel, pulling glowing threads from their own fingers, stretching threads across their reeling frames like zither strings, a singing music. No tabiki cranks to turn, I show them. Steam power has freed both our hands. Freed, I suppose, isn't quite the right word, is it? Says Iku dryly. Lotus-colored thread is flooding out of her left palm and reeling around her dowel. With her right hand, she adjusts the outflow. Here is the final miracle, I say. Our silk comes out of us in colors. There is no longer any need to dye it. There is no other silk like it on the world market, boasts the agent. If you look at it from the right angle, pollen seems to rise up and swirl into your eyes. Words can't exaggerate the joy of this effect. Nobody has ever guessed her own color correctly. Yoshi predicted hers would be peach, and it was blue. Nishi thought pink, got hazel. I would have bet my entire 5 yen advance that mine would be light gray, like my cat's fur. But then I woke up and pushed the swollen webbing of my thumb, and a sprig of green came out. On my day 0, in the middle of my terror, I was surprised into a laugh. Here was a translucent green I swore I'd never seen before anywhere in nature, and yet I knew it as my own on sight. It's as if the surface is charged with our aura, says Hoshi, counting syllables on her knuckles for her next haiku. About this, I don't tease her. I'm no poet, but I'd swear to the silk's strange glow. The sisters seem to agree with me. One looks like she's about to faint. Courage, sisters, sings Hoshi. Hoshi is our haiku laureate. She came from a school for young noblewomen and pretends to have read every book in the world. We all agree that she is generally insufferable. Our silks are sold in Paris and America. They are worn by Emperor Meiji himself. The agent tells me we are the treasures of the realm. Hoshi's white whiskers extend nearly to her ears now. Hoshi's optimism is indefatigable. That girl was hairy when she got here, I whisper to the sisters, if you want to know the truth. The old blind woman comes again, takes our silks, pushes the leaves in with a stick, and we fall upon them. If you think we Kiko Joko leave even one trampled stem behind, you underestimate the deep, death-thwarting taste of the mulberry, vital green, as if sunlight is zipping up your spinal column. In other factories, we've heard, there are foremen and managers and whistles to announce and regulate the breaks. Here, the clocks and whistles are in our bodies. The thread itself is our boss. There's a 15-minute period between the mulberry orgy. Call it the evening meal, please. Don't be disgusting, Di pleads, her saliva still gleaming on the floor, and the regeneration of the thread. During this period, we sit in a circle in the center of the room, an equal distance from our bedding and the machine. Stubbornly, we reel backward. Takayama Town, Oyaka Village, Toku, Kyo, Nara, Furai, Sho, radishes and pickles, laurel and camphor smells of Shikoku, father, mother, Mount Fuji, the inland sea. All Japan is undergoing a transformation. We Kiko-joko are not alone in that respect. I watched my grandfather become a sharecropper on his own property, a dependent. He was a young man when the black ships came to Edo. He grew foxtail millet and red buckwheat. Half his crop he paid in rent, then 2/3. Finally, after 2 bad harvests, he owed his entire yield. That year, our capital moved in a ceremonial and real procession from Kyoto to Edo, now Tokyo. The world shedding names under the carriage wheels, and the teenage emperor in his palanquin traveling over the mountains like an imperial worm. In the first decade of the Meiji government, my grandfather was forced into bankruptcy by the land tax. In 1873, he joined the farmers' revolt in Shubu. Along with hundreds of others of the newly bankrupted and dispossessed from Shubu, Gifa, Aichi, he set fire to the creditors' offices where his debts were recorded. After the rebellion failed, he hanged himself in our barn. The gesture was meaningless. The debt still existed, of course. My father inherited the debts of his father. There was no dowry for me. In my 23rd year, my mother died, and my father turned white, lay flat. Death seeded in him and began to grow tall like grain, and my brothers carried father to the Inoba Shrine for the mountain cure. It was at precisely this moment that the recruitment agent arrived at our door. The agent visited after a thunder shower. He had a parasol from London. I had never seen such a handsome person in my life, man or woman. He had blue eyelids, a birth defect, he said, that had worked extraordinarily to his advantage. He let me sniff at his vial of French cologne. It was as if a rumor had materialized inside the dark interior of our farmhouse. He wore Western dress. He also had, and I found this incredibly appealing, mid-ear sideburns and a mustache. My father is sick, I told him. I was alone in the house. He's in the other room sleeping. Well, let's not disturb him. The agent smiled and stood to go. I can read, I said. For years, I'd worked as a servant in the summer retreat of a Kobe family. I can write my name. Show me the contract, I begged him, and he did. I couldn't run away from the factory, and I couldn't die either, explained the recruitment agent, and perhaps I looked at him a little dreamily, because I remember that he repeated this injunction in a hard voice, tightening up the grammar. If you die, your father will pay. He was peering deeply into my face. It was April, and I could see the rain in his mustache. I met his gaze and giggled, embarrassing myself. Look at you, blinking like a firefly. Only it's very serious. He lunged forward and grabbed playfully at my waist, causing my entire face to darken in what I hoped was a womanly blush. The agent, perhaps fearful that I was choking on a radish, thumped my back. There, Kitsune. You will come with me to the model factory? You will reel for the realm for your emperor? For me, too, he added softly with a smile. I nodded, very serious myself now. He let his fingers brush softly against my knuckles as he drew out the contract. Let me bring it to father, I told the agent. Stand back. Stay here. His disease is contagious. The agent laughed. He said he wasn't used to being bossed around by a Joko, but he waited. Who knows if he believed me? My father would never have signed the document. He would not have agreed to let me go. He blamed the new government for my grandfather's death. He was suspicious of foreigners. He would have demanded to know, certainly, where the factory was located, but I could work, whereas he could not. I saw my father coming home, cured, and finding the 5-yen advance. I had never used an ink pen before. In my life as a daughter and a sister, I had never felt so powerful. No woman in Gifu had ever brokered such a deal on her own. Kitsune Tojima, I wrote in the slot for the future worker's name, my heart pounding in my ears. When I returned it, I apologized for my father's unsteady hand. On our way to the Kiko tea ceremony, I was so excited that I could barely make my questions about the factory intelligible. He took me to a summer guest house in the woods behind the Mia River, which he told me was owned by a Takayama merchant family and at the moment, empty. Something is wrong, I knew then. This knowledge sounded with such clarity that it seemed almost independent of my body, like a bird calling once over the trees. But I proceeded, following the agent toward a dim staircase. The first room I glimpsed was elegantly furnished, and I felt my spirits lift again, along with my caution. I counted 14 steps to the first landing, where he opened the door onto a room that reflected none of the downstairs refinement. There was a table with 2 stools, a bed. Otherwise, the room was bare. I was surprised to see a large brown blot on the mattress, 1 porcelain teapot, 1 cup. The agent lifted the tea with an unreadable expression, frowning into the pot. As he poured, I thought I heard a little splash. Then he cursed, excused himself, said he needed a fresh ingredient. I heard him continuing up the staircase. I peered into the cup and saw that there was something alive inside it, writhing, dying. A fat, white Kiko. I shuddered, but I didn't fish it out. What sort of tea ceremony was this? Maybe, I thought, the agent is testing me, to see if I am squeamish, weak. Something bad was coming. The stench of a bad and thickening future was everywhere in that room. The bad thing was right under my nose, crinkling its little legs at me. I pinched my nostrils shut, just as if I were standing in the mud, a heartbeat from jumping into the Mia River. Without so much as consulting the agent, I squinched my eyes shut and gulped. The other workers cannot believe I did this willingly. Apparently, 1 sip of the Kiko tea is so venomous that most bodies go into convulsions. Only through the agent's intervention were they able to get the tea down. It took his hands around their throats. I arranged my hands in my lap and sat on the cot. Already I was feeling a little dizzy. I remember smiling with a sweet vacancy at the door when he returned. You drank it, I nodded proudly. Then I saw pure amazement pass over his face. I passed the test, I thought happily. Only it wasn't that, quite. He began to laugh. No, Joko, he spluttered. Not one of you, ever. He was rolling his eyes at the room's corners as if he regretted that the hilarity of this moment was wasted on me. No girl has ever gulped a pot of it. Already the narcolepsy was buzzing through me, like a hive of bees stinging me to sleep. I lay guiltily on the mat. Why couldn't I sit up? Now the agent would think I was worthless for work. I opened my mouth to explain that I was feeling ill, but only a smacking sound came out. I held my eyes open for as long as I could stand it. Even then, I was still dreaming of my prestigious new career as a factory reeler. Under the Meiji government, the hereditary classes had been abolished, and I even let myself imagine that the agent might marry me, pay off my family's debts. As I watched, the agent's genteel expression underwent a complete transformation. Suddenly, it was as blank as a stump. The last thing I saw before shutting my eyes was his face. I slept for 2 days and woke on a dirty tatami in this factory with Dai applauding me. The green thread had erupted through my palms in my sleep. The metamorphosis unusually accelerated. I was lucky, as Chio says. Unlike Tuka and Tsuyo and so many of the others, I had no limbo period, no cramps from my guts finding, time to meditate on what I was becoming, a secret, a third and free silk fact. What would she think of me if she knew how much I envied her initiation story? That what befell her, her struggle, her screams, I long for. That I would exchange my memory for Chio's in a heartbeat. Surely this must be the final, inarguable proof that I am, indeed, a monster. Many workers here have a proof of their innocence, some physical trace on the body, scar tissue, a brave spot, a sign of struggle that is ineradicable. Some girls will push their white fuzz aside to show neck. Geen has wiggly lines around her mouth, like lightning, where she was scalded by the tea that she spat out. And me? There was a moment at the bottom of the stairwell and a door that I could easily have opened back into the woods of Gifu. I alone, it seems, out of 22 workers, signed my own contract. Why did you drink it, Kitsune? I shrug. I was thirsty, I say. Roosters begin to crow outside the walls of Nowhere Mill at 5 a.m. They make a sound like gargled light, very beautiful, which I picture as Dai's red and Geen's orange and Yoshi's pink threads singing on the world's largest reeler. Dawn. I've been lying awake in the dark for hours. Kitsune, you never sleep. I hear the way you breathe, Dai says. You sleep a little. What stops you? Dai rubs her belly sadly. Too much thread? Up here. I knock on my head. I can't stop reliving it. The agent walking through our fields under his parasol in the rain. You should sleep, says Dai, peering into my eyeball. Yellowish. You don't look well. Mid-morning, there is a malfunction. Some hitch in the machine causes my reeler to spin backward, pulling the thread from my fingers so quickly that I am jerked onto my knees. Then I'm dragged along the floor toward the machine's central wheel like an enormous, flopping fish. The room fills with my howls. With surprising calm, I become aware that my right arm is on the point of being wrenched from its socket. I lift my chin and begin with a naturalness that belongs entirely to my terror to swivel my head around and bite blindly at the air. At last, I snap the threads with my Kiko jaws and fall sideways. Under my wrist, more threads kink and scrag. There's a terrible stinging in my hands and my head. I let my eyes close. For some reason, I see the space beneath my mother's cedar chest, where the moonlight lay in green splashes on our floor. I used to hide there as a child and sleep so soundly that no one in our one-room house could ever find me. No such luck today. Hands latch onto my shoulders. Voices are calling my name. Kitsune, are you awake? Are you okay? I'm just clumsy, I laugh nervously. But then I look down at my hand. Short threads extrude from the bruised skin of my knuckles. They are the wrong color. Not my green, ash. Suddenly, I feel short of breath again. It gets worse when I look up. The silk that I reeled this morning is bright green. But the more recent thread, drying on the bottom of my reeler, is black. Black as the sea, as the forest at night, says Hoshi euphemistically. She was too courteous to make the more sinister comparisons. I swallow a cry. Am I sick? It occurs to me that 5 or 6 of these black threads dragged my entire weight. It had felt as though my bones would snap in two before my thread did. Oh no, gasped Tuka and Etsuyo. Not exactly sensitive, these sisters from Sakegawa. Oh, poor Kitsune. Is that going to happen to us too? Anything you want to tell us, Dai prods, about how you are feeling? I feel about as well as you look today, I growl. I am not worried, says Dai in a too friendly way, clapping my shoulder. Kitsune just needs sleep. But everybody is staring at the spot midway up the reel where the green silk shades into black. My next mornings are spent splashing through the hot water basin looking for fresh fibers. I pull out yards of the greenish-black thread, soiled silk, hideous, useless for kimonos. I sit and reel for my 16 hours until the machine gets the last bit out of me with a shudder. My thread is green 3 days out of 7. After that, I am lucky to get 2 green outflows in a row. This transformation happens to me alone. None of the other workers report a change in their colors. It must be my own illness then, not Kiko evolution. If we had a foreman here who would quarantine me, he might destroy me the way silkworms infected with the blight are burned up in Katamura. And in Gifu? Perhaps my father has died at the base of Mount Inaba. Or has he made a full recovery, journeyed home with my brothers, and cried out with joyful astonishment to find my 5 yen advance? Let it be that, I pray. My afterlife will be whatever he chooses to do with that money. Today marks the 42nd day since we last saw the agent. In the past, he has reliably surprised us with visits, once or twice per month. Factory inspections, he calls them, scribbling notes about the progress of our transformations, the changes in our weight and shape, the quality of our silk production. He's never stayed away so long before. The thought of the agent, either coming or not coming, makes me want to retch. Water sloshes in my head. I lie on the mat with my eyes shut tight and watch the orange tea splash into my cup. I hear you in there, Kitsune. I know what you're doing. You didn't sleep. Dai's voice. I keep my eyes shut. Kitsune, stop thinking about it. You are making yourself sick. Dai, I can't. Today my stomach is so full of thread that I'm not sure I'll be able to stand. I'm afraid that it will all be black. Some of us are now forced to crawl on our hands and knees to the machine, toppled by our ungainly bellies. I can smell the basin's heating. A thick, greasy steam fills the room. I peek up at Dai's face, then let my eyes flutter shut again. Smell that? I say, more nastily than I intend to. And here, we're dead already. At least on the stairwell, I can breathe fresh air. Unwinding one cocoon for an eternity, she snarls, as if you had only a single memory, reeling in the wrong direction. Dai looks ready to slap me. She's angrier than I've ever seen her. Dai is the big mother, but she's also the samurai's daughter, and sometimes that combination gives rise to a ferocious kind of caring. She's tender with the little ones, but if an older Joko plummets into a mood or ill health, she'll scream at us until our ears split. Furious, I suppose, at her inability to defend us from ourselves. The others also suffered in their pasts. She said, we sleep, we get up, we go to work, some crawl forward if there's no other way. I'm not like the others, I insist, hating the baleful note in my voice, but desperate to make Dai understand this. Is Dai blind to the contrast? Can she not see that the innocent recruits, the ones who were signed over to the agents by their fathers and their brothers, produce pure colors and radiant hues? Whereas my thread looks rotten, greeny black. Sleep can't wipe me clean like them. I chose this fate. I can't blame a greedy uncle, a gullible father. I drank the tea of my own free will. You're Free will, says Di, so slowly that I'm sure she's about to mock me. Then her eyes widen with something like joy. Ah, so use that to stop drinking it at night in your memory. Use your will to stop thinking about the agent. Di is smiling down at me like she's won the argument. Oh yes, very simple. I laugh angrily. I'll just stop. Why didn't I think of that? Say, here's one for you, Di. I snap. Stop reeling for the agent at your workbench. Stop making a thread in your gut. Try that. I'm sure you'll feel better. Then we are shouting at each other, our first true fight. Di doesn't understand that this memory reassembles itself in me mechanically, just as the thread swells in our new bodies. It's nothing I control. I see the agent arrive, my hand trembling, the ink lacing my name across the contract. My regret. I know I'll never get to the bottom of it. I'll never escape either place, Nowhere Mill or Gifu. Every night, the cup refills in my mind. Go reel for the Empire, Di. Make more silk for him to sell. Go throw the little girls another party. Make believe we're not slaves here. Di storms off, and I feel a mean little pleasure. For 2 days, we don't speak until I worry that we never will again. But on the second night, Di finds me. She leans in and whispers that she has accepted my challenge. At first, I am so happy to hear her that I only laugh, take her hand. What challenge? What are you talking about? I thought about what you said, she tells me. She talks about her samurai father's last stand, the Satsuma rebellion. In the countryside, she says, there are peasant armies who protest the blood tax, refuse to sow new crops. I nod with my eyes shut, watching my grandfather's hat floating through our fields in Gifu. And you're right, Kitsune. We have to stop reeling. If we don't, we'll get every year of our futures. We'll get our last breaths. The silk belongs to us. We make it. We can use that to bargain with the agent. The following morning, Di announces that she won't move from her mat. I'm on strike, she says. No more reeling. By the second day, her belly has grown so bloated with thread that we are begging her to work. The mulberry leaves arrive, and she refuses to eat them. No more room for that, she smiles. Di's face is so swollen that she can't open one eye. She lies with her arms crossed over her chest, her belly heaving. By the fourth day, I can barely look at her. Di, I whisper. She nods resolutely. I'm escaping. You might still stop me, but I'll do my best. We send a note for the agent with the blind woman. Please tell him to come. Join me, Di begs us, and our eyes dull and lower. We sway. For 5 days, Di isn't real. She never eats. Some of us, I'm sure, don't mind the extra fistful of leaves. The tiny voice I can't gag begins to babble in the background. If X many others strike Kitsune, there will be X much more food for you. Guiltily, I set her portion aside, pushing the leaves into a little triangle. There, I think, the flag of Di's resistance. Something flashes on one, a real silkworm, inching along in its wet and stupid oblivion. My stomach flips to see all the little holes its hunger has punched into the green leaf. During our break, I bring Di my blanket. I try to squeeze some of the water from the leaf velvet onto her tongue, which she refuses. She doesn't make a sound, but I hiss. Her belly is grotesquely distended and stippled with lumps, like saps, pregnant litter tickets. Her exit is active, strangling my something. Perhaps age to follow Western veterinarian, I find myself thinking. Whatever has happened to her seems beyond the ken of Emperor Meishi's own doctors. Start reeling again, I gasped. Di, please. The first thing it is. It's easy. You'll see for yourself, I hope. Her skin has an unhealthy translucence. Her eyes are standing out in her shrunken face and her skull, the way red thread fans into veiny view under her skin. Di gives me her bravest smile. Go get some rest, Kitsune. Stop poisoning yourself on the stairwell of Gifu. If I can stop reeling, surely you can too. When she dies, all the silk is still stubbornly housed in her belly, stolen from the factory, as the agent alleges. This girl died a thief. 3 days after her death, he finally shows up. He strides over to Di and touches her belly with a stick. When a few of us grab for his legs, he makes a face and kicks us off. Perhaps we can still salvage some of it, he grumbles, rolling her into his sack. A great sadness settles over our whole group and doesn't lift. What the agent carried off with Di was everything we had left. Chiyo's clouds and mountains, my farmhouse in Gifu, Tetsuyo's fiancé. It's clear to us now that we can never leave this room. We can never be away from the machine for more than 5 days, unless we live here, where the machine can extract the thread from our bodies at speeds no human hand could match. The silk will build and kill us in the end. Dye's experiment has taught us that. You never hear a peep in here about the new year anymore. I'm eating, I'm reeling, but I too appear to be dying. Red, almost totally black. The denier too uneven for any market. In my mind, I talk to Dye about it, and she is very reassuring. It's going to be fine, Kitsune. Only, please, you have to stop. Stop thinking about it. This was Dye's final entreaty to me. I close my eyes. I watch my hand signing my father's name again. I am at the bottom of a stairwell in Gifu. The first time I made this ascent, I felt weightless, and now the wood groans under my feet. Just as a single cocoon contains 1,000 yards of silk, I can unreel 1,000 miles from my memory of this one misstep. Still, I'm not convinced that you were right, Dye, that it's such a bad thing, a useless enterprise, to reel and reel out my memory at night. Some part of me, the human part of me, is kept alive by this, I think, like water flushing a wound to prevent it from closing. I am a lucky one, says Chiyo. I made a terrible mistake. In Gifu, in my raggedy clothes, I had an unreckonable power. I didn't know that at the time, but when I return to the stairwell now, I can feel them webbing around me. My choices, their infinite variety spiraling out of my hands, my invisible thread. Regret is a pilgrimage back to the place where I was free to choose. It's become my sanctuary here in Nowhere Mill, a threshold where I still exist. One morning, 2 weeks after Dye's strike, I start talking to Chiyo about her family's cottage business in Shishibu. Chiyo complains that the smells in her dry attic, where they destroy the silkworm larvae in vinegary solutions. Why do they do that? I wanted to know. I've never heard this part before. Oh, to stop them from undergoing the transformation, Chiyo says. First, the silkworms stop eating. Then they spin cocoons. Once inside, they molt several times. They grow wings and teeth. If the caterpillars are allowed to evolve, they change into moths. Then these moths bite through the silk and fly off, ruining it for the market. Teeth and wings, wings and teeth. I keep hearing all day under the whine of the cables. That night, I try an experiment. I let myself think the black thoughts all evening. Great wheels inside me turn backward at fantastic, groaning velocities. What I focus on is my shadow in the stairwell, falling slantwise behind me like silk. I see the ink spilling onto the contract, my name bloating monstrously. And when dawn comes, and I slug my way over to the workbench and plunge my hands into the boiling vat, I see that the experiment was a success. My new threads are stronger and blacker than ever. Silk of some nameless variety we have never belly spun before. I crank them out of my wrist and onto the dowel. There's not a fleck of green left, not a single frayed strand. Moonless, says Hoshi, shrinking from them. Opaque, midnight at Nowhere Mill, pairs in comparison. Looking down into the basin, I feel a wild excitement. I made it that color. So I'm no mere carrier, no diseased Keiko. I can channel these dyes from my mind into the new, tough fiber. I can change my thread's denier, control its production. Seized by a second inspiration, I begin to unreal speeds I would have just yesterday thought laughably impossible. Not even Yuna can produce as much thread in an hour. I ignore the whisper that pools around me on the workbench. Kitsune's fishing too deep. Look at her finger slits. They look like gills, Atsuyo shudders. Someone should stop her. She's fishing right down to the bone. What is she making? What are you making? What are you going to do with all of that, Kitsune? Tsuka asks nervously. Oh, who knows? I'll just see what it comes to. But I do know. Without my giving a thought to what step comes next, my hands begin to fly. The weaving comes so naturally to me that I am barely aware I am doing it, humming as if in a dream. But this weaving is instinctual. What takes effort, what requires a special kind of concentration, is generating the right density of the thread. To do so, I have to keep forging my father's name in my mind, climbing the stairs, watching my mistake unfurl. I have to drink the toxic tea and feel it burn my throat. Lie flat on the cot while my organs are remade by the agent for the factory, thinking only, yes, I chose this. When these memories send the fierce regret spiraling through me, I focus on my heartbeat, my throbbing palms. Fibers stiffen inside my finger. Grow strong, I direct the thread. Go black, lengthen, stick. And then, when I return to the vats, what I've produced is exactly the necessary delineating darkness. I sit at the workbench at my ordinary station, and I'm so happy to discover that I can do all this myself. The silk generation, the separation, the dyeing, the reeling. Out of the same intuition, I discover that I know how to alter the machine. Help me, Tsuki, I say, because I want her to watch what I'm doing. I begin to explain, but she's already disassembling my reeler. I know, Kitsune, she says. I see what you have in mind. Words seem to be unnecessary now between me and Suki. We beam thoughts soundlessly across the room. Perhaps speech will be the next superfluity in Nowhere Mill. Another step we Kiko girls can skip. Together, we adjust the feeder gears so that the black thread travels in a loop. After getting wrung out and doubled on the machine's great wheel, it shuttles back to my hands. I add fresh fibers, draping the long skein over my knees. It is going to be as tall as a man, 6 feet at least. Many girls continue feeding the machine as if nothing unusual is happening. Others, like Suki, are watching to see what my fingers are doing. For the past several months, every time I've reminisced about the agent coming to Gifu, bile has arisen in my throat. It seems to be composed of every bitterness, grief and rage, the acid regrets. But then, in the middle of my weaving, obeying a queer impulse, I spit some onto my hand. This bile glues my fingers to my fur, another of nature's wonders. So even the nausea of regret can be converted to use. I grin to die in my head. With this dill-colored glue, I am at last able to rub a sealant over my new thread and complete my work. It takes me 10 hours to spin the black cocoon. The first girls who see it take one look and run back to the tatami. The second girls are cautiously admiring. Hoshi waddles over with her belly full of blue silk and screams. I am halfway up the southern wall of Nowhere Mill before I realize what I am doing. Then I'm parallel to the woodpecker's window. The gluey thread collected on my palms sticks me to the glass. For the first time, I can see outside. From this angle, nothing but clouds and sky, a blue eternity. We will have wings soon, I think, and 10 feet below me, I hear Suki laugh out loud. Using my thread and the homemade glue, I attach the cocoon to a wooden beam. Soon, I am floating in circles over the machine, suspended by my own line. Come down, Hoshi yells, but she's the only one. I secure the cocoon and then I let myself fall, all my weight supported by one thread. Now the cocoon sways over the machine, a furled black flag, creaking slightly. I think of my grandfather hanging by the thick rope from our barn door. More black thread spasms down my arms. Kitsune, please, you'll make the agent angry. You shouldn't waste your silk that way. Pretty soon they'll stop bringing you the leaves. Don't forget the trait, it's silk for leaves, Kitsune. What happens when he stops feeding us? But in the end, I convince all of the workers to join me. Instinct obviates the need for a lesson. Swiftly, the others discover that they, too, can change their thread from within, drawing strength from the colors and seasons of their memories. Before we can begin to weave our cocoon, however, we first agree to work night and day to reel the ordinary silk, doubling our production, stockpiling the surplus skeins. Then we seize control of the machinery of Nowhere Mill. We spend the next 6 days dismantling and reassembling the machine, using its gears and reels to speed the production of our own shimmering cocoons. Each dusk, we continue to deliver the regular number of skeins to the zookeeper to avoid arousing the agent's suspicions. When we are ready for the next stage of our revolution, only then will we invite him to tour our factory floor. Silkworm moths develop long ivory wings, says Chio, bronzed with ancient designs. Mouths, I ask her. Can I see? Who knows what the world means? I believe we will emit highly creatures. In truth, there is no model for what will happen to us next. We'll have to wait and learn what we become when we get out. The old blind really is blind, we decide. She squints directly at the wrecked and rerouted machine and waits with her arms extended for one of us to deposit the skeins. Instead, Hoshi pushes a letter through the grate. On our side of the grate, I hear girls smacking their jaws, swallowing saliva. Fresh forest smells rise off the sacks, but we won't beg, will we? We won't turn back. Di lived without food for whiskers tickle the zookeeper's withered cheeks. At last, a dark cloud passes over her face. She barks with surprise, swats the air. Her wrinkles tighten into a grimace of fear. She backs away from our voices, her fist closed around our invitation to the agent. No silk, repeats Seiko slowly. The agent comes the very next night. Hello? He raps at our grated door with a stick, but he remains in the threshold. For a moment, I am sure he won't come in. They're gone, I wail, rocking. What? The grate slides open and he steps onto the factory floor into our shadows. Yes, they've all escaped, every one of them, all your Kiko Joko. Now, my sisters drop down on their threads. They fall from the ceiling on whistling lines of silk, swinging into the light, and I feel as though I am dreaming. It is a dreamlike repetition of our initiation when the agent dropped the infecting Kiko into the orange tea. Watching his eyes widen and his mouth stretch into a scream, I too am shocked. We have no mirrors here in the Nowhere Mill, and I've spent the past few months convinced that we were still identifiable as girls, women. No beauty queens, certainly, shaggy and white and misshapen, but at least half human. It's only now, watching the agent's reaction, that I realize what we've become in his absence. I see us as he must, white faces with sunken noses that look partially erased, eyes insect huge, spines and elbows incubating lace for wings. My muscles tense, and then I am airborne, launching myself onto the agent's back. For a second, I get a thrilling sense of what true flight will feel like once we complete our transformation. I alight on his shoulders and hook my legs around him. The agent grunts beneath my weight, staggers forward. These wings of ours are invisible to you, I say directly into the agent's ear. I clasp my hands around his neck, lean into the whisper, and in fact, you will never see them, since they exist only in our future, where you are dead and we are living, flying. I then turn the agent's head so that he can admire our silk. For the past week, every worker has used the altered machine to spin her own cocoon. They hang from the far wall, coral and emerald and blue, ordered by hue like a rainbow. While the rest of Japan changes outside the walls of Nowhere Mill, we'll hang side by side, hidden against the bricks, paralyzed inside our silk, but spinning faster and faster, passing into our next phase. Then, we'll escape. Inside his cocoon, the agent will turn blue and suffocate. And look, I say, counting down the wall, 21 workers and 22 cocoons. When he sees the black sack, I feel his neck stiffen. We have spun one for you. I smile down at him. The agent is stumbling around beneath me, babbling something that I admit I make no great effort to understand. The glue sticks my knees to his shoulders. Several of us busy ourselves with getting the gag in place, and this is accomplished before the agent can scream once. Gin and Nishi bring down the cast iron grate behind him. The slender agent is heavier than he looks. It takes 4 of us to stuff him into the sock-like cocoon. I smile at the agent and instruct the others to leave his eyes for last, thinking that he will be very impressed to see our skill at reeling up close. Behind me, even as this attack is underway, the other Kiko Joko are climbing into their cocoons. Already there are girls half swallowed by them, winding silk threads over their knees, sealing the outermost layer with glue. Now our methods regress a bit, getting a little old-fashioned. I reel the last of the black cocoon by hand. Several Kiko Joko have to hold the agent steady so that I can orbit him within the thread. I spin around his chin and his cheekbones, his lips. To get over his mustache requires several revolutions. Bits of my white fur drift down and disappear into his nostrils. His eyes are huge and black and void of any recognition. I whisper my name to him to see if I can jostle my old self loose from his memory. Kitsune Tajima of Gifu Prefecture. Nothing. So then, I continue reeling upward, naming the workers of Nowhere Mill all the while. Nishi, Yoshi, Yuna, Uki, Etsuyo, Gin, Hoshi, Raku, Chiyoko, Mitsuko, Seiko, Tuka, Dai, Kitsune, I repeat, closing the circle. The last thing I see before shutting his eyes is the reflection of my shining new face. That concludes Reeling for the Empire, which again is the second story in Vampires in the Lemon Grove, a short story collection by Karen Russell, read for you today by librarian Lily. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you will join us, if not next week, then for many more this summer. And if you are interested in reading more of this book or rereading that for yourself, you can get a copy at the Malden Public Library. If you go to mpl.bibliocommons.com, you can reserve a physical copy and pick it up with our curbside pickup, or you can get an ebook. Thank you so much for joining us, and that's it for us today. I hope you enjoy yours.